we're here today with my Scrap Your Scraps video. So today I have my bin of scraps. I have a photo that I wanted to scrapbook. This is a photo of myself. And I also have my square punch. Now I know my last couple Scrap Your Scraps videos have also been using my square punch, and the truth is I just love it and I have so many fun ideas. So I think what I'm going to do is do one more square punch video, and then after that I'll try to do something different next week. I just had so much fun with this square punch and I love that I can use it multiple times. So this punch is from Recollections, and it says right on here 2 inches, but when you punch a square out, it is not 2 inches. If you measure it, it's only like 1.5. So I feel like I've been duped. So just so you know, if you get this one, it's not really 2 inches. I really wish it was, because then it would work perfectly on my 12 by 12 page, I think. So I might go back and actually get one that's an actual 2-inch size, but I'm happy with it. And guys, can you guys see, I don't know if you can see my scrap bin right now, how much is in here. It's like half full or half empty. I don't know, depending on how you look at it. But I'm actually really proud of myself, because a few weeks ago, when I started my Scrap Your Scrap series back up, this thing was piling over. And then I also had this whole other bag full. So this one I've been pulling things out of, and it's not as full as it was. But my scrap bin is half empty. So I'm really getting good use out of my scraps, and I'm really excited. So today I'm going to show you 3 different ways to use your square punch. I'm only going to make one layout, but I want to show you 3 different ideas for what you could do. And you can mix and mingle them, or you can, I don't know, whatever makes you happy. So I want to show you some different ideas. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to grab your scraps and punch out a bunch of squares. Now I already have some punched out just to save us some time, so that this video isn't really long and I don't have to do a ton of editing. But I punched out a bunch of squares using my Recollections square punch, and I just punched out a ton. And I wasn't really caring too much about the colors or the patterns or the designs. It doesn't really matter that much in the long run, so don't worry about that. So I'm going to show you 3 different ways to use your square punch. So the first way that I tried, which I really like the way it turns out, is I took a bunch of the squares and I cut them in half. And I wasn't trying to be perfect about it or anything, I just cut them in half. And then what I did was I grabbed another square or another piece, and I glued that square on it in the corner, so that the square had 2 designs on it. So it was half that one that I had cut and then half the other piece. So then I made a whole bunch of those. So with that, I then made this page, which I'm so excited about. It's so colorful and it's so happy, and I just love it. And it actually reminds me of like a vintage quilt, and I just think it's so exciting. So basically I just took a bunch of squares, cut a ton of them in half, and then just glued them on there. And then I started piecing them down. And I'm not sure if you can see this on the camera, but I did sort of try to create a pattern so that it looks like diamonds. I don't know if you guys can see this, but a diamond there, and it goes out like this. So that's one idea for your square punch, is to cut them in half and stick them on top of each other, and you can make like a quilt inspired page. So then the next one that I did was I thought maybe it would be fun if I also cut the squares into 4 pieces. So then I took them, cut them in half from corner to corner, and then I cut those pieces in half too, so that I now had 4 little pieces. And it's really easy to do. I honestly just sat and watched Full House while cutting squares into little triangles and little pieces. So then what I did was, once I had squares that were half, oh no, that's the last one I want to show you. That's okay, I'll show you now. So then what I did was, once I had like a whole bunch of triangles cut that were 1/4 of the square, I took another square, and I decided to use white because I knew that it was going to be quite busy. So I took a white one, and I started in each of the corners, gluing down those little triangles in each corner. And what you end up with is this white space. If you decide to use white paper, you could also use pattern paper. In the middle of that looks like this. And so that's another design that you could do with the square. And I actually really like this one. This is the one that I'm going to use for my page today. So let me show you what that looks like. I made this page here, and so you can see that I did all those squares in that way, where you cut a whole bunch of pieces of paper into 4, so you have little triangles, and then you just glue them in each of the corner just so that they're overlapping. And again, I feel like it looks like a really cool like quilt design almost. So in this one, I decided to just do half the page. Might do it like this or like that or however it works out. And I put it on white so that the color could really pop. And I think what I'm going to do is use this one for my layout today. So let me show you one more triangle design that I did. For the last one, you need 3 different pieces of paper or 3 different designs. And you're going to cut 2 of them in half. And for this one, what you're going to do is you're going to glue it down in the corner again so it covers up half the square. And then you're going to take the other half triangle and you're also going to glue it down, overlapping that in another corner. You want to do maybe the one beside it so that they'll overlap. And what you end up with is a square that looks like this, where you have 3 different parts or 3 different pieces of paper to make this layered piece. And I also made a page out of that one. And what I did for this one, let me just show you guys here. I left a little bit of space in between them, and I also inked the edges of all of the little pieces so that they would stand out a little bit more. So I've given you 3 different types of designs for like a quilt inspired page using your square punch. So you have this one where you layer 3 pieces of paper on top of each other. You have the one that I'm going to use today, which is where you take the paper, cut it into 4s, and use those 4 pieces in the corners. And then you have the other one where you just do half squares, basically, and layer them so it looks like a quilt. So you could use any of these designs for your page if you're going to take some inspiration from today's layout, and try different things. Try using cardstock for the background and putting all the squares really close together. Or maybe try spreading them out a little bit so it's more of a grid. Or maybe you want to do what I'm doing on this page and you only do half the page with the really fun pattern paper and the other half you don't. So before I start making the page, I wanted to give you guys some tips because of some things that I've learned while I was working on this. Don't worry about the colors or the patterns or the designs on the paper. The truth is that like it's going to be really colorful and bright, and I actually really like this really colorful bright page. So it actually really inspires me. But if you are nervous about that, maybe you want to just grab a couple of pieces of paper that you know will coordinate. So maybe you want to grab a paper pad or 2 or 3 pieces of 12 by 12 cardstock and just use that so that you don't have as many colors. I wanted to use my scrap stash, so that's why I grabbed these out today. So I'm going to use them. So either go with crazy designs and pull out your scraps and just mix and mingle them, or maybe go with a paper pad if you want some continuity. And then I know that these backgrounds are really busy. I know that they're all like, there's a lot going on. So my recommendation for a really busy layout like this is to go with a black and white photo. So you'll see my photo here. It was originally color, but I decided to turn it black and white. Now let me show you what it looks like on each layout. Let's start with this one. It's black and white, so it's high contrast to all the crazy busyness going on around it, and it actually really draws your attention into the photo. So it would work really well on this quilt-inspired colorful background. On this layout, the black and white is very calming. So while this is really busy, you have this calm photo, black and white, which draws your attention to it because it looks different than everything else on the page. And also, the fact that I've only put the squares on half the page is really helping to draw attention to this photo here. And on this last page, where there's still lots going on, the photo is quite calming. So if you were to build some layers of also calm paper underneath this, it would really make it pop out. Perhaps you stick a doily or some vellum underneath this or some tissue paper to help draw attention into the photo. So that will work really well. So I guess try to go with a calm photo. And by calm photo, I also mean a photo that doesn't have a lot of things going on. You'll notice that you can't really see the background in this photo. It's mostly just a headshot and it's really tight into the frame of myself, and that really helps to keep it calm too. When you have so much going on in the background, it's really good to just go with a calm, simple photo, maybe one that's black and white, maybe one that doesn't have a lot of other busyness in the frame. And the other thing you'll notice, which I've left on this frame, is I left the mat, or I left a white line all the way around the edges. That also helps to calm the photo and draw attention into the photo from all the busyness that is going on around it. So what I'm going to do is, I don't have time today to make all three layouts, but what I am going to do is I'm going to make one layout with you, and then I am hoping that I can also make layouts with the other two and maybe just insert a photo or something at the end so that you guys can see it. So today's layout, I'm going to make this page. And again, I think with this page you could go with any sort of orientation of this half side. You could go with the photo down here in this corner. You could go with it up there. You could go with it on the left. So you could really just play around and see what it is that you like, what design that you like. I personally think I like the photo at the bottom. I don't know, I just tend to like photos in this area. Not sure why. And I really like this white because it's so fresh to be near the bottom. So I'm trying to decide if I want it there or if I want it there. And I think, I mean, at this point, it's really preference. Because I'm looking directly at the camera, I'm not looking to the side or I'm not looking off into the distance, you could place it either way. If the individual in the photo is looking one certain direction, I recommend making them look in towards the frame. So if I was looking this way, having me look in towards the layout has better flow than if I was looking out of it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick it there and in that bottom corner. And I want to keep the embellishments and what's going on here really simple. So what I've decided to do is stay with the monochromatic image down here where it's black and white. And I want to keep all of the embellishments and things going on here also in that same tone. So what I think I'm going to do first is I'm going to put something underneath my frame just to add a little more texture here. And you know how much I love doilies. So I think what I'll do is I'll start with a doily. I'm running out of white ones, but that's okay. I've got a few less little ones in here, and I've also got some heart ones. So I have this heart one here. I got that from Michael's. You can just see how it adds so much texture to there. I'm not sure if you can see that on the camera. I'll hold that up. Hopefully you guys can see it now. Might add two of them. I really like lately adding more than one doily underneath a photo. I don't know what it is, but lately I've found that I like that technique. There we go, that looks nice. So I'm really happy with how that's looking. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it like that. I want to know if there's something else that I could place perhaps behind the photo. And I have some tissue paper in here that's white but has little flecks of color in it, which I think will actually help to draw attention there. So I know I said it was going to go with monochromatic. I still feel like this is monochromatic even though it has some sparkles in it, so I don't feel like I lied or I'm cheating myself. And when I use tissue paper, I really just like to rip it. I like it to have that like imperfect kind of look. But you could also cut it with your scissors. And I can't tell you where this tissue paper came from. Sorry guys, it just came in a present or something I had purchased online. And Missy Whitten always does this, and I love how it looks. She usually just puts a little fold in her tissue paper, and I think it just adds a little extra texture and dimension there. That looks nice. So, it's a little big, so I'm just going to also, going to rip a little bit. I don't want it to be perfect under there. I just wanted to add that little extra dimension. And I'm just going to use my Tim Holtz Tiny Attacher to just stick a staple in there. And then I'll layer that down with my photo and my 2 doilies. And I'm using my hot glue gun today. I always use my hot glue gun. If you're new to my channel, this is pretty much my go-to adhesive. I really don't use anything else other than some score tape for the actual photo, but I really like my hot glue gun. And the score tape I use, I just get at my local scrapbooking store, but I really like Copic double-sided score tape. You can find it on Simon Says Stamp. That's my favorite score tape. Not that they're all quite similar, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so I'm just going to stick that down there, and I like how that's just drawing attention there. So, what I want to do is I want to see now if I have any other white embellishments that I could tuck under there. I'm liking that there's nothing too high contrast or pulling away from the photo itself. So I'm just going to peek in my stash and see if I have anything else that I could use. I have some things from my previous Felicity Jane kit that are black and white, so I might try and see if any of those items look good. So again, I'm just going with black and white embellishments. I have these black and white letter phrase words from an old Studio Calico kit. And there was this one that says eyes open wide, which I thought was appropriate because you can see my eyes are really open here. I think it looks good like that. I don't really have that many white embellishments or black ones, mostly because I love color, so everything I own is colorful. So what I do have is I have these containers, and I got these at my dollar store, and I store all of my random embellishments, like when there's only 1 or 2 left in a kit or something like that, in these containers by color. So you can see I've got reds and pinks, oranges and yellows, greens, blues, a little bit of purple, black and white, and then golds and browns. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look through my black and white pile to see if there's anything in here that I want to use. I have this rubber label that came in last year's December Daily Kit. I think it says Be Joyful. I feel like that would be a cute little thing. And my one little word for this year is joy, so I feel like it's appropriate to put on there, Be Joyful. And then the only other embellishments I really see in here that are white is I had punched out, or I had used my die cutting, my my Cuttlebug, to cut out some white feathers at some point. So there's a couple of white feathers in here, but they add a lot of texture So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to see how many I can find in here. Just have 2. And I'm just going to sort of stick them on here to the side. And then I have this Be Joyful. I'm going to just use my hot glue gun and glue it under this Eyes Open Wide. So it just says Be Joyful, Eyes Open Wide. And then the other day I got this really pretty white ribbon tape from Freckled Fawn, and you can see I've already used almost this whole roll. And I thought it might be nice to just take a little strip of this and stick it underneath the photo. So this tape is really fun. It has the adhesive already on it, so you just peel back the protective line. And then I'll just trim off the excess. Just add a little more dimension. So there we go. I think I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to just use this Eyes Open Wide, Be Joyful as my title. And now I'm going to do a little bit of journaling. And I think one of my favorite techniques lately is to just do journaling around the outside of the page so that it doesn't take away, but then I still have my journaling on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just write a little bit about some of the things I've learned about myself this year in my journaling around the page. Okay, there you go. I've added the journaling, and I just added it all the way around the outside. So I just said, there are so many things I've learned so far this year about myself, about others, and about God. I'm still learning. I'm still learning to be patient for what will come next. I've learned to be spontaneous, to try new things. I've learned God is faithful and He is walking through life with me, and I've learned to be joyful in the little things too. So I just added that around the outside so it doesn't really take anything away. I'm really happy with this. I wanted to just add some final touches, so I thought it might be fun to grab some of my buttons and just add a couple buttons to this upper piece here. And I think I'm just going to grab some pink ones because pink is my favorite. And I don't necessarily have specific places I'm putting them, just trying to spread them out. And I think it just adds a little extra texture. So for my buttons, I'm just going to use my hot glue gun to stick those down. And honestly, I have never found a adhesive that sticks down hot glue or sticks down buttons as good as hot glue. I know a lot of people use glue dots, but I always find that they fall off. But I've never had any problems with my buttons falling off when I have stuck them down with hot glue. Okay, that looks good. Maybe I should add one more. Maybe here or here. Right there. And there you go. There you have today's Scrap Your Scraps video. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to finish those other 2 layouts, insert a photo or something here. Okay, so here is the second layout. So for this one, I wanted to use this photo of my dog Bernie. Isn't he cute? He's so little. Let me hold that up to you guys. He's so little. From when we were taking a walk. And I felt like the background was almost too busy, so what I decided to do was create like a white frame around it by cutting apart the page and putting it back onto a white piece of cardstock, and then it creates like this frame around it. So I know it's not perfect, but I actually really like how it draws attention in. I still have that quilt kind of theme going on, but I get to put Bernie in the middle, and then I have all these different square pieces on the edge. So I really like how that works. So I decided what I wanted to do with my last page, my last square punch page, and I came up with this really cool idea, and I was just going to show you the finished project, but I actually wanted to show you sort of how I put it together. Sorry about the dog. So this is the paper that I showed you earlier with all of the squares, and they have like half pieces on them. Just a sec. and I really like how that worked out. And I decided that I wanted this page to be the last page of my 2015 album. I haven't finished my 2015 album, but I thought it would be fun to have a final page that sort of showed like a compilation of the whole year in somehow. So I decided what to do. I decided what I was going to do was I was going to take a bunch of my selfies from the year. I try to take at least one selfie a month. Just because I feel like it's good to include myself in my albums, and I like how you can see things change. You can see different weather, different things. Like, this is when I rode a motorcycle in Uganda. This is in the freezing cold winter. This is when I got pouring, drenched on. Just after I'd gotten my hair cut, I had my hair pink here. This is when I did my December daily like YouTube video series. So like I just felt like selfies would be a good way to show like the year in review. So what I did was, using the Pick Stitch app on my iPhone, I put 6 selfies on a page. Then I used my Canon Selfie to print them out with a border so that it would be the right size. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to punch these photos using the same square punch that I punched this page with. And it actually is the perfect size when you do six selfies to a page and then use the border on the Canon Selfie, as you can see. So I'm just going to center it where I want it and then punch through. And then I've got perfectly sized little selfie of myself to stick on one of these squares. So I probably didn't need as many of these squares as I thought I was going to, but you know what, I really like it. And I decided to go with black and white because there was already enough color on the page. So I wanted there to be something that would decipher the photos from the rest of the page. And I'm not really worrying too much about where the photos go. Or I'm not worrying too much either about the fact that they're black and white so they don't stand out a ton, because it's going to be the last page of my album, and all of these selfies are actually in the album somewhere because I typically scrapbook them in some way or another. So you're already going to have seen these photos somewhere in the album. The focus for this page is more just to have like a year in review somehow. And so I thought it would be nice to do it in this unique way by using little tiny 1.5 by 1.5 squares of selfies of me. So I'm just going to continue to punch out the rest of these. And I think I've used... How many have I used? There's 6 on each page, and this is my 3rd one. So I used 18 selfies total. And I really just picked my favorite ones from the year, also ones that I felt had some kind of story or showed some kind of progression. And so then I punched them out like that, and then I'm just sort of placing them wherever I think that they will look good. I'm trying to not put any like right next to each other, but that's a little hard sometimes. And I want to spread them out too. Sort of got like a row going on here, which I didn't want, so I'm just going to move that down there. And then I have one more, which I think I'll put there. So there you go. You've got a whole bunch of little tiny selfies from the whole entire year, which is really sort of like a fun combination. And it's a really cool like last page of an album because it shows like the whole entire year of photos kind of in a short little way. I'm not going to add a title to this or anything. I don't even think I'm going to embellish it. I think I'm actually just going to leave it like this. So I have the really colorful page, and then I have all these little tiny selfie photos. It's sort of like a Where's Waldo kind of page when you're looking at it, because I realize it's busy, but I actually sort of love the busyness of it. One tip, if this is just a little too busy to you, maybe try using only 2 or 3 different types of paper instead of just craziness like I did. And what you could do also to invert it, to make the photo stand out more, is you could use only black and white for the pattern paper and then make the photos colored. I think that would help. And then another thought I had would be if you wanted to just embellish it somewhat, you could use buttons and place a button or some kind of embellishment where each photo is, like this. And I think that that would also help bring attention to where your photos are, because that little added piece of texture actually really helps bring your eyes' attention there. So I don't want to add the buttons, but I just wanted to give you a tip of if you did want to embellish this, what it could look like. So anyways, I'm pretty happy with that. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, I think I'm going to move that there. Stick the photos down. And then I'm going to show you all 3 of the square punch layouts I made. Okay, there we go. I have made 3 Scrap Your Scraps videos today using my Recollections square punch, which I just adore. I made this one, which is the end of my 2015 album. I made this one of my dog Bernie, so this one's going in August. And this is the one where I used 3 pieces of the square punch. So this one I used 2 pieces, this one I used 3 pieces, and then this is the one that I did a layout share of, and on this one I used, I guess, 5 different squares for each one, or 5 different pieces. So I used the white one and then the 4 different patterns around it. So hopefully that gave you some inspiration today on how to use your square punch, how to use your scraps, how to do monochromatic embellishing, how to incorporate black and white photos or more than one photo on a page, or how to make a conclusion page. I think for the conclusion of an album, this is so fun. I love that it just shows the whole entire thing. You could also make it sort of an infographic if you wanted, which is when you put some information or statistics. So like how many places you visited, how many photos of you are in the album, how far you drove, or whatever it is. So you could add words to this, you could add a title. I like it just as it is, so I'm going to leave it, and it's just going to go at the back of my 2015 album. So there you go. 3 different square punch ideas for you today to inspire you to use your scraps. I hope you guys felt inspired. I hope you felt encouraged. And I can't wait to see what you guys do with your square punches or your scraps. Or if you do an idea like this, I would love to see it. Tag me below. You can leave a comment with a link to where I can find it. You can tag me on Instagram at vbissel, or use the hashtag #ScrapYourScraps. I'm also on Facebook, so if you want to tag me there or link me up somehow, I'd love to see it. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed today's Scrap Your Scraps video, where I showed you 3 different ways to use a square punch and some scraps. Have a lovely day. Bye!